told, hey, you're not what we're looking for. So if you made it through the pre-screening and they said, hey, you've been approved or whatever, that means that, you fit the background and they want to talk to you. Okay, cool. So we're going to go ahead and get started, everyone. Here's the code, interview 2020, so you guys can get your points. Isa, can you go admitting people? We still have some late joiners.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I believe we are recording, yeah. So, okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Conference Crash Course Part 2. Today we're going to be focusing mostly on talking to recruiters and interviewing. And then the last 40 to 45 minutes or so. So this presentation will be kind of brief. At 6:15 to 6:20 or so, we're going to take you guys into breakout rooms with a bunch of different volunteers, and you guys can practice behavioral interviews, technical interviews, get some resume reviews in, and just ask any questions that you guys may have to someone who might have some more experience. Cool. Code again is interview 2020. Preparing yourself. Okay, so how to prepare for a conference and talking to recruiters. There's 4 main steps. That's your resume, your elevator pitch, making sure you research the companies, and if and when you get an interview, prepping for that. Resume, make sure that your resume is tailored to whichever position you've applied for. So if you're applying for a more technical role, try to highlight your more technical experience. The same goes for a more managerial role. If you tailor your resume around the specific job, you're more likely to get picked to interview for it. A great tip for this is to kind of just have one master resume. My master resume is like 6 pages long, and for every job that I apply to, I just pick and choose blocks to add to my main resume that I use for application. Master your elevator pitch. This shouldn't be more than 20 to 30 seconds. I'm a firm believer in a very quick, simple one, just as an opener. Don't like chew the recruiter's ear off, but just introduce yourself, what school you're from. Keep in mind, this is a national conference, so there's going to be people from all schools. Make sure you mention you're from UF, what year you are, your major, and maybe a little tidbit about yourself. Super short, super simple. Again, time is super, super limited, so don't waste too much time just like blabbing, trying to perfect your elevator pitch at the beginning. Just make sure that it's simple and to the point. Research the companies you're going to talk to. I had a couple people ask me, how do you talk to a company you haven't researched? The answer to that is you don't, or at least you don't do it successfully. So make sure you know something about the company, even if it's one thing that you can ask them about before you go and talk to them, because again, you're only going to get to screen with companies once during the career fair. You can't go back and talk to every single recruiter there. So it's really important that you make the most out of that time. So research the companies beforehand. Again, this is virtual, so you can literally just have, Wikipedia or whatever, a news article or something about the company up on one screen and talk to them at the same time. And if and when you get an interview, congratulations, and make sure you prep super hard. This is what this whole presentation is supposed to help you with, just prepping in general. And we're going to give you some tips for interviewing. Okay, so to prepare, make sure you upload your resume to the SHPE National website. Like we said last time, conference already started, so make sure that you upload it to your personal profile, and you're going to upload it again for every company you pre-screen for. If you have any changes, etc., to make for that specific company, that's a good way to differentiate them, but make sure that it's uploaded now. Have your elevator pitch down, like I mentioned earlier. Be ready for interviews, start prepping questions. That's what today is for. And yeah, choose your top 5 companies, know what they're looking for, know a little tidbit about each one. Utilize the corporate database. If you don't know what that is, you can ask some of our lovely corporate database directors, and join the WhatsApp group. Again, the QR code to join the WhatsApp group was in Tuesday's presentation. So if you missed it, go back to that. Okay, so interviews. I'm trying to rush through this just because there is a lot for today, and I want to take you guys to breakout rooms. But so interviews, we're going to do some practices, and first thing we're going to talk about is behavioral interviews. Behavioral interviews are, tell me about a time that this happened. So the first one would be, tell me about a time that you didn't work well with a supervisor. What was the outcome, and how would you like to have changed what happened? Another kind of behavioral interview is describe your biggest flaws or your greatest strengths, etc. Describing yourself, describing situations are all what categorizes behavioral interviews. So the general strategy for answering behavioral interviews are PAR and STAR. Another one is CAR. They all essentially mean the same thing. The first letter or two letters, depending on which one you're looking at, is the problem. In STAR, it's the situation and the task. This should be, if you're answering a question about a time you solved a problem or something, this should be the situation that you were in. I was working in so-and-so place. I was doing this role. That's the problem. That's where you were at. You identify the issue or whatever the topic of your kind of analogy is. The action should always be what you did to solve said problem, to answer said question. And the result is the outcome of the whole situation, how it kind of relates to what the interviewer asked. And a little thing is that the result should always be positive. You don't want to say, hey, tell me about a time you worked with someone difficult, and then the result was I ended up just quitting because I couldn't handle it or something. That's not how you want to sell yourself to a recruiter. So make sure that whatever story you're using, whatever situation you're describing, that in the end, the action that you took had a positive impact, and you talk about the result on the situation and how your action led to said result. Best thing to do is have a couple different stories, have a different couple of experiences that you can talk about in the back of your head, be able to, apply them certain things. I have, one story that I generally use for, people that are hard to work with or failures, etc. I hate working with Lisa. No, I'm kidding. Just have something in the back of your mind relating to, like a negative thing, maybe a positive thing, a couple different stories that you can kind of reference when you're asked a question. Don't worry, don't stress too much about this, but also don't prep for like one specific behavioral question, because if they tweak it the slightest bit, then all of a sudden your story doesn't work. I have a question here in chat. What's a good way to answer "why should we hire you" question without sounding arrogant? So the "why should we hire you" question is a behavioral question, but it's a little bit of mix of both. You should kind of talk about your background and why you're appropriate for the job. That doesn't make you arrogant. That's just kind of sharing why. Saying that I'm the best man for the job, or there's no one better. Those things are what make you sound arrogant. But if you talk about the job description and how you feel that you meet it and how the job provides you room to grow, those things are good. But yeah, it's another good thing to "why should we hire you" is those questions are usually tied to the why do you want to work for X company, and the best thing to do is research the company and have an answer for that. Pro tip, as my SHPEitos, this is the golden key to getting jobs. You're at SHPE conference, you're in SHPE. If they ask you why you want to work for the company, always say something about diversity. It's never a bad thing to talk about. So definitely play into that card. Okay, so again, I'm breezing through this just because I want to give you guys more time in the breakout rooms. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a sample question.
So I'm going to ask Duncan the question, and then we're going to lead a discussion, and please feel free to unmute yourself and give feedback. Don't be afraid. We don't bite. It's okay. If he did something wrong, it's okay. So tell me about a time you identified and solved a problem. What was the result?
Okay, give me a second to think about that.
So in this case, it's okay to say, give me a second, like, don't worry.
Okay, so one of the things that I'm involved with on campus is a research lab, and I've been involved for over a year by now. So far, we've been 3 or 4 undergrads, as well as my research professor, my PI. But just this semester, our research lab grew from 3 or 4 undergrads to about 8 or 9. So previously, we had been communicating using emails, but now when there's 8 or 9 people in an email and different topics for each one to address, communication has gone a bit sloppy. So this was definitely a big issue. And when I got tired of emailing, I spoke to my PI about implementing a new platform. And she and I agreed that a good platform for us to use was Slack. So I actually took the initiative and created the Slack for the lab. And we've been using it for about a month now. It's been super good, really easy way to streamline and compartmentalize the conversations and get the lab working more efficiently.
Thank you. Okay, so anyone wants to unmute and his or herself, and then you can go ahead and say areas of improvement and strengths or things that you liked about the way he answered the question. Keep in mind that if he used the par, car, or star method, eye contact, it's through video, so you saw his response. So please be engaged. This is for everyone to learn. And I'm not afraid to call out on people.
Yeah, I can go first.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was a great response. I was just coming at it from the outside. I felt like it wasn't very specific on like maybe what the issues were that you had communicating with people and like what the lab was about. Maybe you had to share large files or something like that. And so maybe like more specific on like what actually was going on in the lab and how it was impeding on your day to day.
Okay, cool. So highlight
Thank
the
you.
problem a bit more.
Yes.
I had something. Oh,
Okay, feel free. Thank you. Go.
eye contact was lacking in my opinion. There was a lot of looking up instead of at the camera.
Okay.
That's funny. I have my screen's here and you guys are down here. So
Oh, that's why. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
but
That's something good to highlight because a lot of people have monitors. So please, that's one thing. Look at your camera. So when I look at you, I don't look at my screen. I tend to look at directly at the camera. Like it feels weird, but that's something that they taught me in video conferences. Like don't look at your screen because the person looking at you is like when you're looking at them, it's weird, like you're looking down. So when you're answering a question, look at the camera.
a good tip for that, and that's something I didn't do, is drag the little squares with the people as far and like centered as you can. So when you look at them, you're inevitably looking closer to the camera. I actually had you guys underneath, so that's a good catch.
Thank you.
One thing I want to add, I think Duncan did a great job of not starting to answer the question right away and instead, say, hey, give me a second to think about this. And he structured the question a bit, the answer a bit more in his head. And it shows when he's talking that he's not doing a lot of, saying the word like or stalling like that. So, that's a very important thing that he did that we all need to take note of.
Thank you, Raul.
So I agree with that. Duncan did really well in kind of making his answer a story, the fluidity of the entire from like explaining the situation, how he resolved it, and like the end results. He did really well, just kind of keeping it concise throughout.
Thank you, Danny. One thing I want to highlight that he did is he wasn't afraid to use the word I. He wasn't afraid to bring it back to himself. And that's something that we don't usually do because we're afraid for people to think, oh, they're just like self-centered. No, they want to hire you. They don't want to hire the group you worked with. So yes, you may use the word we, but always bring it back to yourself and talk about what you did. Because that's one thing that recruiters say. It's like when they ask you a question, sometimes people are afraid to use the word we and they're like, the word I, and they're like, oh, we did this, but in reality, you were the one that did it. Exactly. So don't be afraid. Like, of course, you're not going to be like, I did this and saved the world. No, like, just be mindful of everything that you did. And like Raul said, the words like and is something that we do a lot. Like I do it a lot. So, like right now. So please keep in mind that. And then we're gonna go through the next. Thank you to everyone who participated.
Just a couple things that I want to add. Raul's point was great. I did structure it in my head. I kind of thought through my 3 points, my P, A, and R before I said it, and that's definitely what avoids filler words. The other thing I want to mention is, especially when you're prepping for these behavioral interviews and the types of questions that you may get, the behavioral questions that they ask aren't entirely random. Like they're not just going to ask you, tell me about a time that you did this or did that, or like they're behavioral questions aimed around a certain role. So this sample question that I did is actually a real interview question that I had 2 weeks ago for a consulting role. And what they were looking for with this question is what a consultant does. They identify an issue, they propose a solution, and they implement it. And so that's why, knowing that it was a consulting question, in my answer, I tried to highlight those 3 steps of identifying, proposing a solution, and implementing it. So if you're looking for that kind of job, that's the kind of behavioral question that you may find. If you're looking for a more people-based, team-based job, you might have more behavioral questions asking you about a time that you worked with a difficult teammate, or a time that you had to work as a team, or etc. So just keep that in mind, that the behavioral questions that you may ask are almost always going to be tailored towards a role. Nice.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about, tips for a successful video interview. First of all, find a quiet, private space that has great light. So front-facing light is preferable. So maybe if you have a window in front of you, like natural light is really good. If not, find a lamp, find something. Like I said, look at the camera while answering the questions. If you feel like it's weird or awkward, like try to drag the interviewer or interviewers closer to your camera so you can look at them. Then have a notepad, a pen, and a copy of your resume in your desk for notes and reference. Not for you to look at while the interview, but just in case you're like, oh, let me think about it, and you're nervous, you can look at your resume and kind of drag a memory from like a leadership position or a previous work experience. Use a virtual background or have your room organized. Believe me, they're gonna look at it. You don't want your room to be like all sort of a mess. If you have roommates, talk to your roommates and be like, hey, I'm about to have an interview. Be mindful of that. But I would suggest just do a virtual background at this point. And if not, find just a wall, like a plain wall or something. Avoid using your phone. I feel like a lot of us just join Zoom on our phone, or laptop on your lap, like you put it on a desk. Like imagine me interviewing like this, because I'm putting it on my lap, like it looks weird. So please don't do that. Like try to, if you have a table that is pretty low, try to put like a textbook under your laptop to have it like at the same height. So they're able, like it looks better. Also, they can see that you're wearing like your suit, or like you're wearing your jacket and stuff like that. Duncan, can you click next? Also use hand gestures when appropriate. Like we don't want robots, like I talk with my hands a lot. And in the past, when I've had video interviews, that's something that I asked for feedback. They were like, oh, I like that you were like not afraid to use your hands, or you were able to like express yourself. Like it gives some insight about like who you are, like your personality. Like I said, try to put a textbook if your laptop is like too low. Check your internet connection, make sure that it's stable. Put your phone on silent mode, because if you have it on your desk and it like vibrates or something, like it makes a sound, and it can distract you. So try to put it away, or just put it on do not disturb, or silent mode. Remember that they are people, so ask about their day, their experience, like, hey, how are you? How's it going? How's like SHPE convention for you so far? Do you like this like online format, or like how's COVID-19 going? And then show up a few minutes before. So remember that on time is late. Yeah, your interview's at 12 p.m. If you log in at 12 p.m., you're late. Like that's a bad impression, because if it were in person, I would assure you would not get there at 12. So think about it, and like always show up a few minutes before and just be prepared. Let me see, we have a question in the chat. It says, do you ask for feedback right away after the interview or after as an email? So what I've done, in the past is I asked for it on an email. Like I just asked my interviewer, like, hey, what's your name? Or like in general. And then I was like, oh, may I get your email just to like follow up if I have any questions. about like the role, the position, or the company in general, and they usually say yes. So I haven't asked for feedback in the positions I've gotten. I've asked for feedback in the positions I haven't gotten. But people may have different experience. So if anyone has gotten like feedback or have asked for feedback before, please unmute yourself and say your experience. But in my experience, it's the positions I haven't gotten, or like when they say, oh, unfortunately, whatever, I'm like, okay, let me ask for feedback, because there's always something to learn. And it's not only in job interviews, I've done it with like clubs or anything that I've interviewed with before. And don't worry about rejection. Like, it's okay, we live and we learn. But it also shows that feedback is important. Like, don't let yourself, like, don't bring yourself down. Just try to find ways to improve.
Yeah. And when it comes to feedback specifically, hopefully you can get some good feedback. But just be warned that sometimes companies won't give it to you. They won't explain why they didn't take you. Sometimes it just comes down to timing. So don't be too hard on yourself. But if a company, doesn't answer your request for feedback, or kind of just says that they can't give you that, then it's just the way it is. Some more questions in chat. Where could we get the SHPE background for Zoom? Low-key goated. Yeah, I'm sure that someone from eWord can send it to you. I think Adi sent us this one, but Lisa's giving us a thumbs up.
Sorry, I responded in the chat, but I'll send it to everyone in the convention group chat on WhatsApp.
Yep.
Yeah, I sent it right now in case anyone wants to save it at the moment, but feel free.
There we go. So yeah, it's a good background to have, simple, and it cleans up your room. So
Valentina is right. Thank you, Valentina. She said, I would recommend to ask the name of the interviewer beforehand and look them up on LinkedIn to find things that you may have in common, talking points. That's true. If you don't want them to see that you've seen their profile, incognito tab, you can do that, and then they will know. So that's a good one as well. If you don't mind them knowing that you looked at their profile, also good.
Who's asking for the WhatsApp group link here? I'm gonna paste it this one time here in the chat. And yeah, otherwise we'll probably send one more announcement with it. Yeah. And
so next.
Yeah. If you Google, there we go. Is it bad that they know, or is that a good impression that you were diligent? They won't really know exactly, or I don't know, LinkedIn Gold, but I don't know, it might be a little awkward that you were stalking them beforehand. So it's not something that they're expecting you to do, but they might take it poorly if they find out you're doing it. So
also keep in mind that if you talk to a recruiter, they may not necessarily be the one interviewing you. So recruiters, the ones that are in charge of screening, are not usually the ones in charge of interviewing.
No. It's better to be prepared for the job role and the company than it is to be prepared to speak to a specific person. So if you're going to spend time prepping, prep for the company, prep for the role, prep for yourself, but I wouldn't bother too much like prepping to speak to a specific person, because if you get someone else, you might be caught off guard.
That's true. So we're going to do mock interviews now. So if you're volunteering as an interviewer, please change your name to first name, last name, your interviewer, and then in parentheses you can add your major. So if you click on the next one, Duncan, there's a list. You can use that, but we're going to go back so everyone can see the instructions. So please take the time to change your name.
Yeah, so this is everyone. If you're an interviewee, this is how we want you to change your name. So if you're looking for a resume review, RR, and then your year and major. So behavioral BI. So Alberto Gator, behavioral interview, second year ISC. So everyone go ahead and please do that. And then if you're an interviewer, if you're here to volunteer and help us out, change your name to interviewer and then the major. If you want to use these majors as well, that way we can just match you with someone who's looking for help.
Yeah. Yes. So behavioral interviews are more common. They're more standard. You may get I feel like technical interviews are mostly for computer engineering or computer science, or that's what I've heard from my experience. you can get 1 or 2, like you may get like max 2 questions of like technical interviews in another major. Like I've heard once, I think it was Johnson and Johnson that asked, how would you design a table with 3 legs, like a 3-legged table or something like that. So like, it's just seeing your creativity. For example, Alessandra is saying depends on your major, but for mechanical engineering, yeah, it's usually like behavioral. I feel like in this virtual setting, since the interviews won't be that long, I would say that they would go mostly with behavioral. I'm gonna be sending, so for anyone who's an interviewer, and honestly anyone who's interviewing as well, or like preparing for a conference, I'm gonna send a list of possible behavioral interview questions that I've gotten in the past, like that I kind of remember, and then I looked some up. So feel free to like look at them. I would suggest like interviewees save the file, but don't look at it right now. And then interviewers, please download it and look at it. And those are some of the questions that you can ask. So how this is gonna work is we're gonna put you into breakout rooms. And then depending on what you want, you're gonna do that. And then the interviewers, please download the file and ask as many questions as you want. Please give feedback. I'm gonna send a rubric just for you to look at how usually like how you can like evaluate the interviewee. Also, another piece of advice that I have for y'all is I usually print the behavioral questions that I have, and I take some time to write down like notes of possible situations just for me to remember, because I'm a forgetful person. But I do that and just be like, oh, so when have you worked with a difficult person? I can be like, oh, when I was alumni relations director for SHPE. When I worked in, what is it, DML, or something like that, you know, like just for you to remember so you're better prepared. So is everyone ready with
I think it looks like most people are. Issa, I think you're gonna have to go ahead and make all the breakout rooms since you're the actual host. If you are a interviewer for computer science or computer engineering, essentially if you're gonna do coding interviews, and I did not already private message you with the link to some sample questions and answers, please private message me if you're an interviewer. Like Issa said, we're gonna send like documents out to all the interviewers now. If you are an interviewee, ask your interviewer after you guys do the sample questions, ask them to give you the sample questions and answers that we provided them for both behavioral and technical for your reference. But we're only gonna send it to the interviewers at first because we don't want you guys to peek, because we all know that you will.
Okay, so
yeah, so just give us a second here, everyone. We're trying to set up all the breakout rooms, and
yeah, so anyone who's currently, please everyone make sure to change your name. I would really appreciate it.
yeah, we have a couple people who still haven't updated on their role. So please, if some people just have their year and major, add if you're an interviewer, or if or the acronyms are RBI or TI if you're looking for a specific thing.
Yeah, please do.
And if you are an interviewer and you haven't received the behavioral or the technical questions to ask, please private message me.
Let me see. Sorry, this is taking long. Let me see. Please, everyone who's still here, change your name. I would really appreciate it. Almost done.
Just a little heads up, some people are asking me, the technical questions we're doing are going to be only for computer science. If your interviewer, if you want a technical question, you're like a mechanical engineer or something, you can ask your interviewer if they can come up with some. But a lot of majors are kind of tough to come up with technical questions for on the fly. So the only sample ones that we have are for computer science, because computer science interviews are 100% technical.
Mm-hmm. But if anyone who has gotten like technical questions before and they're not CS, feel free to share them in the chat. Let me see. Sorry, everyone. The thing is, some people haven't changed their names. Let's see.
Something else, guys, this is going to conclude the session. So we're going to send you the breakout rooms. You guys can do some sample questions and answers. And after the questions and answers, you guys can ask your interviewers whatever questions that you may have regarding conference, etc. We're going to stay in, Isa and I and Adi are going to be in here. So if you guys have any follow-up questions, you guys can return to the main room and ask us. But in terms of the presentation, that's pretty much over. So you don't have to come back if you don't want to.
Yes.
Looks like Noah and Domi are putting some sample questions in there for a bit more technical stuff if you're mechanical or into manufacturing. So
We still have a couple of people. So some people are gonna have two interviewees in their rooms, if that's okay. Please. So. Also, we're gonna have the recording, so let me see. Oh, Duncan, you're not gonna, we're all gonna have to interview.
that's fine.
Yeah, so I'll stay in this room since you're CS. So we need that. Let me see.
Yeah, stop sharing now.
Also, take this time while I finish this to ask questions. Unmute yourself. So
I know this is gonna sound really vague, like, but how did you even come up with, where did you draw from for your experiences where you, like, how did you come up with the anecdotes that you use?
On the sample question that I did, or just in general?
Just in general, like you said, you have like a mental bank of all of your anecdotes.
So, I mean, that comes with like just like years of experience, I guess. I am a senior by now, but in terms of just like places to draw from, just think to the different things that you've done, maybe different group projects. If you're in research, you can talk about situations in your research lab. You can talk about situations in working in groups in SHPE. If you've had previous internships, if you know, a real job, any kind of situation where you might have been working collaboratively as a team, solving problems, etc. And like, it doesn't have to be engineering problems. They're good places to be drawing from.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
definitely. Same, I draw from that, or like my classes, or anything that I worked in group projects before. Also, I've even used high school experiences. Like I
Yeah.
don't mind, they don't mind that. Like I've used previous experiences as well. So
Biggest thing is
I'm gonna open up the breakout rooms right now. And then I'm gonna be here in the main room in case anyone has questions. And then good luck. If any of you have trouble sharing your screen, I'm gonna try to like enable it for everyone, but have your resume ready if you need a resume review. So good luck, everyone.